Have you ever wondered what is that? Is that me? Oh no! It's the release of the USPS Bruce Lee Forever stamp, and I'm late to the dedication ceremony! Is that the event happening at Nippon Kan Theater in Seattle, where a brand new stamp will enter the mail service and Bruce Lee will be commemorated with music and speeches and a grand unveiling? Yeah! Well, you better go. I'll stay here and do research. Okay. Thanks. Okay, well, I guess I'll just get a little bit more comfortable here. The event starts at 2, and I don't want to disclose exactly when she left, but I don't think she left enough time. So let's hope she hurries. It's a far steeper hill than I knew. I should have known because it said 3 blocks. It takes 10 minutes. It's a steep block. That is a steep hill. And video doesn't really properly show it, so let's check a map from 1884 that depicts the incline. So I'm starting this walk here, and I'm going here. Clearly a lot has changed since they were drawing maps like a Where's Waldo location scout, so let's switch to how it looks today. And if I'm hearing this right, it sounds like I might have made it to the Nippon Kan Theater. And this is where I start to get deja vu, because I know this group. This is Mach Phi, and I saw them 2 years ago at the Year of the Dragon Lunar New Year stamp release. Okay, so at this point you might be wondering, what am I talking about? What is this event and why am I here? Great questions, by the way. This is a dedication ceremony for a new stamp. I've only been to 2 of them ever because they don't come around all that often. Every year, the USPS releases somewhere between 30 and 40 new stamps. And although all of those have first day of issue, only 10 or 20 of them get a release event, like this dedication ceremony. And the reason I've only been to 2 is they're all based on location. They take place in locations that connect in some way to the stamp subject matter. You could go to the release of the upcoming Eagle stamp at the National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota on May 14th. Or if you had a time machine or I'd recorded this video quicker, you could go to the Lowrider stamp that were just released in San Diego. Or the 1776 stamps that will get an event in Philadelphia in July. So if I'm currently finding a good view from the balcony of the Nippon Kan Theater in Seattle's Chinatown International District, that must mean that Bruce Lee, who the stamp is for, must have had a connection here. And he did! Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco while his father was touring in the US for a Cantonese opera. But Bruce spent his life until 18 living in Hong Kong. It was there that he starred in films as a child actor. There he also trained in martial arts with Ip Man. He was getting into fights in Hong Kong, and after some trouble with the police, his mother suggested he go to the United States and claim his citizenship. He briefly moved to San Francisco, but found a better home in Seattle. So when the stamp was choosing a city for the dedication ceremony, I'm not surprised they picked here. So what takes place during the dedication? Well, now that I found a place to perch and film from above, we're about to see my favorite part, the big reveal. Now that cheering is funny to me because every single person in this room knows what this stamp looks like. When you walk into the event, we're given a program with the stamp in the top right corner and a super cute little version of the stamp as a pin. I have emails in my inbox since October 29th showing me this stamp. This is me reacting to it 6 months ago. We have these Bruce Lee stamps. I love the movement on these. I think we've gotten a lot of good stamps for dads right now. But even though everyone knows what this stamp looks like, this is one of my favorite parts because it's exciting. It's a tease and it brings together everyone in the audience and on stage. Because the cool part about this event is that everyone is coming from different interest points. I'm there in a stamped turtleneck. Thank you to my friend Hannah, by the way. So I'm clearly showing my allegiance to stamps. But there are fans who brought their Bruce Lee memorabilia to be signed by the family, or postcrossers who send mail across the world using stamps they'll get today, or people and families who live in the area and just want to show up to see a stamp be dedicated. So when you hear all those cheers, they are coming from people who are excited for all those different reasons. But looking at this giant stamp, I should have seen something that I didn't notice in the email or on the stamp on my program. That's not a photo. That's not a still from a movie. It's a black and white painting. So this is the artist Kam Mak. He is a painter, but this is not his first stamp appearance. You might recognize his hyper-realistic work from the previous set of Lunar New Year stamps from 2008 to 2019. And he also painted these koi fish, which I never knew existed and would like a re-release. And he is one of 13 artists who created portraits for the upcoming Figures of the American Revolution set. But the stamp he's been working on for a long time and seems very proud of is this Bruce Lee stamp. And I can see why.
And it was the most difficult job I ever did because he is very famous and everybody had an idea what he's supposed to look like.
And he did not disappoint. We all have an idea of what Bruce Lee looks like, and Kam Mak properly captured him in motion. And clearly, the audience likes it too. Check out the reaction to the description of the stamp of what Bruce Lee is kicking.
On the right side of the stamp, you see the words Bruce Lee in USA. They're vertical and angled. It appears as if Lee's kick is breaking that down.
This audience rocks. That's a good and generous laugh to a description of a stamp. In my dreams, that's how you guys react when I say a joke about a gable. But it's not just laughs you can get here. This is the Master of Ceremonies introducing one of the speakers.
Now I'm very pleased to introduce Sue Kay, who was the first female student in Bruce Lee's Kung Fu classes. And she's still,
This is just the reaction to her introduction, but I want to make it clear that Sue Ann Kay absolutely brings down the house.
There was a lot of chatter about that new kid from Hong Kong who knew good food. And my dad heard that, and he asked if he would teach the Boy Scouts in Chinatown, which he did. And my brother was a Boy Scout at the time. And Dad invited him to our house for a home-cooked meal by my mother. And he was sparring in the backyard with my brother and showing some kicks. And I was impressed. And he said, well, just come. And I said, okay. So on Saturday morning, my dad took me to this class that was in the basement on 8th Avenue. I'm not sure. It may have had a dirt floor. We'll have to check that with Linda. I'm 80 now, and I remember calling Linda one time to share what I had been thinking about and realizing that Ruth influenced the trajectory of my life. Her comment was, oh, Sue, you and many others.
Now, watching her speech, she made a joke about looking at the stamp and cheerleading, which got good laughs, but I didn't really get.
See this stamp, it reminds me of Linda too, because she was a cheerleader and should do the same.
So what I hadn't realized until reading Bruce Lee's biography is that Sue wasn't just his first female student. She also changed the course of history by introducing Linda and Bruce. Linda is Bruce's widow and is in the front row here. Pretty much everyone on stage thanks Linda or mentions her in some way. Linda and Sue Ann went to Garfield High School together and were on the cheer team. Linda had seen Bruce Lee in the hallways of the high school after he had done a talk for a class about philosophy. Sue Ann said that he was the guy she'd been taking kung fu lessons with. And Linda was intrigued. One Sunday morning in August 1963, Linda went with Sue Ann to Chinatown. The young women entered a rundown building on King Street through a half door that faced the sidewalk, went down a dingy, dark staircase, and emerged in a basement room with concrete walls, bare light bulbs, and no other decoration. Linda thought to herself, oh brother, what did I get myself into now? That's from Matthew Pauly's biography on Bruce Lee, and you'll see King Street is mentioned. But Sue Ann, in her talk, says 8th Ave. There have been debates about where Bruce Lee's first school was. This article from Northwest Asian Weekly is by Asunta Ng, who did a story on his death in 1973 as a student reporter, and then in 2023 she came back to the topic, reporting on his first kung fu school in Seattle. She actually reconnected with Sue Ann Kay, who she had interviewed for that story 50 years before. And this time, they actually went looking for the place she went on Saturday. They went inside and looked at the basement of a few of the properties on that street. Sue Ann called Linda, and they seemed to agree it was this one in the middle of this block. Buildings hold history, and the couple of blocks around here are filled with stories that connect with Bruce Lee and Linda Emery and Sue Ann Kay. You can still go to Thai Tung Restaurant, where him and his crew often ate. But all the pieces I read showed that tracing the locations of a freelancer is not easy. Bruce Lee was working as a dishwasher and was teaching dance lessons for much of his time in Seattle. He was also running kung fu classes off and on. Many were informal, like in a parking garage. Some seem more like meetups with his group, while others were more organized. Sue Ann mentions him instructing the local Boy Scouts. Even though it's clear from his biography that he had some big dreams for his kung fu and his future, it also sounds like someone really trying to make it work. And that also means I think it's hard to nail down the true beginning. Is Bruce Lee's original school on King Street or 8th Ave or one of the many other places that he taught? From the responses published at the bottom of this Northwest Asian Weekly, you can tell this is an area of true debate. Which location is the first? That is the type of question that I personally have come to not be that interested in while researching history and buildings. It's a hard thing to track down, and once you finally find out, it doesn't actually tell you that much. But what Sue Ann has, to me, is the most valuable, interesting thing. Her memory. She remembers going to a basement on 8th Ave with her brothers on Saturdays, and the floors might have been dirt. And although I might be ready to remove the first from the conversation, I remember how everyone reacted when they were told they would be hearing from the first woman to be trained by Bruce Lee. It's what got everyone in this crowd to react like this.
Please go food classes. And she's still,
But I like to think that although maybe they needed the first to get in the door, once they were there, they were wrapped. It didn't matter if she was the first or the 41st. She had a story to tell, and she found an audience excited to hear it. And speaking of people the audience wants to hear from, the introduction to Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter, suggests the crowd is looking forward to it.
This is my honor to introduce the remarkable Shannon Lee. You know, somebody said to me that they thought that this might be the first stamp that a citizen who has their citizenship through birthright was on. So I wanted to see if that was true. And I Googled it. Now, this is the internet, so maybe this is true, maybe this isn't true. But I'm going to share what I discovered, which is that this is not the first time that a birthright citizen is on a stamp. However, the first two birthright citizens that were on a stamp were George Washington and Ben Franklin.
She's right that George Washington and Ben Franklin were not born in the United States, and you see them on a lot of stamps, especially the old ones that I'm personally not that interested in. But you don't have to be born in the US or even a citizen to get on United States postage stamps. You just need to be dead and to have made a big contribution to American history or culture. That's why Canadian-born Alex Trebek was on one for hosting Jeopardy, and English-born William Shakespeare was on one for getting guys into earrings. But no matter where you're from, being featured on a stamp is an honor, and Shannon Lee talks about what an honor this is, especially with how much Bruce Lee used the mail.
You know, postage is a vehicle of connection. We connect with our loved ones, we connect with our colleagues through the mail. My father, especially given the time period in which he grew up, wrote many letters, many of them public. It's how he communicated with his friends when he was overseas, with his family when he was away from his family, to his wife and children when he was away. And postage helped him to bridge East and West. And so I think it's just really fitting that he's on a postage stamp because he was a connector of people. He brought cultures together. He brought different martial arts together. He brought different industries together. And postage does that, and now this stamp will be doing that as well, continuing that legacy of connection and togetherness.
And reading his biography, I kept finding these little points that connected Bruce Lee to the mail. A letter sent to his friend across the world. The book he wrote was sold through a mail-order, self-published martial arts bookseller. The private P.O. box Linda got so they could write each other letters without telling her parents that she was dating a Chinese man. Every couple of pages, you find another touch point that connects this legend with this extremely mundane service. Bruce Lee was 32 when he died, and if he hadn't died, maybe he would have written another book that captured more of his principles on life and martial arts. But his death was surprising, and suddenly all the little mundane things that took up a small portion of his life, like writing letters to friends and fans, are these special things that you can hold on to. Those bits of writing feel more special and more important. Bruce wrote this note to Linda on the back of a photo 5 days after their first date at the recently completed Space Needle. To the sweetest girl from the man who appreciates her. To live content with small means, to seek elegance rather than luxury, and refinement rather than fashion. To be worthy, not respectable, and wealthy, not rich. To study hard, think quietly, talk gently, act frankly. To bear all cheerfully, do all bravely, await occasions, hurry never. In other words, to let the spiritual, unbidden, and unconscious grow up through the common. Bruce. Just by reading his words, you can imagine him better. His philosophy, their relationship, it makes the dead feel alive again. Between his movies and his letters, they keep Bruce here with his family and his friends and his fans. And now, if you send a letter with his stamp, you are entering into the ever-constant power of communication with other people. You get to write your own letter or card or note, just like he did. I know mine will be less good, but it's still nice. And I know my dad is going to get a card with this stamp and be like, "Oh, Bruce Lee, did you ever see that one, Enter the Dragon? It's really good." I might be leaving with stamps so I can communicate with other people, but I also got to hang out with people right here. I got to meet Anika, who also loves the water tower in Volunteer Park, and I got to meet Zach and Azalea, who kindly explained post-crossing to me. I stood in line and got autographs from everyone who was on that stage. I watched as Linda took photos with so many fans who were so excited to see her. And then once the stage was empty, I went up and had 2 different strangers help me make it look like Bruce Lee was kicking me in the stomach.
Okay. Oh, mine's upside down. Here, there you go.
I'm gonna make it look like I'm being kicked.
Ready?
So if you get a chance to go to a USPS event, you should go. I highly recommend them. And if not, you can go to the post office or online and get your Bruce Lee stamps, or your Shaker stamps, or your SpongeBob SquarePants stamps, or, the Lowriders ones. Those have come out. And then you can send letters and cards with them and tell the people in your life, look, I know your address. Thank you all for watching this video. On Patreon this month, I'm going to include more clips from the day. You'll get to see what I bought at the dedication ceremony, like the stamp and little items that you could get. And I'm also going to do a little bit more on Nippon Kan Theater because it actually has a very interesting history. Maybe you'll like it. Okay, bye.